Hey, welcome back to another discussion video. So I just turned the camera on and I was thinking about what I wanted to talk about today, and something that's like been reoccurring in my stream the last few times I've had a podcast or played games or whatever was just like the hype, I guess, for Gen 10 and for Champions and like what this could possibly mean for the Pokemon series. And I feel like we're at a really interesting time right now where we don't know really anything about Champions and Gen 10 other than maybe some leaks here or there, nothing official. And Pokemon ZA is like the focus of everything, and obviously it goes without saying, but Pokemon Legends ZA is most likely 99.9% not going to be one of the multiplayer VGC aspect type games that we're going to be playing competitively. So even though I'm very excited for that game, please don't get me wrong, there's not really too much to talk about in the competitive sense there. But I've recently gone back and replayed Sword and Shield, and I think it kind of got my brain thinking about what we've lost over the years and what we've gained and what I want to see in the future, because I think there's a lot of things other than the obvious that people are overlooking and that people have kind of looked at with either rose tinted glasses or maybe just honestly didn't play the older games. I would imagine that a very large player base of adults playing Pokemon right now, you either have been playing since the beginning or maybe you're brand new, right? So there's a lot of people that didn't experience the horrors of early Pokemon competitive, myself included, to an extent. Just to give a quick background on myself in case you're new, I'm not very good at competitive Pokemon. I've been playing on and off since like 2015-ish, 2014. I started playing singles at the very tail end of Black and White, although I was absolutely horrible. And I went into X and Y being like, this is the time I'm going to become a Smogon champion, and that did not go super well. I made a team after grinding for 2 weeks on the train going into work, and I was like, hell no, this takes too much time for me to make a team that absolutely stinks. So I took a break from that. And then I started following VGC around 2016 when Wolfie won Worlds, actually, because it was trending on Twitter. And that's how I actually learned about the world of VGC. So I've been kind of like on and off following it, but I only just started playing VGC like a year or two ago. I'm one of the newbies, although I've been with Pokemon since it came out in the United States in the 90s because I'm old. So I have a very casual approach to the game. So if you want a more professional take on this kind of thing, then go click on somebody else's video. But I figured I'd give I would like to think that I give a unique perspective as somebody in my shoes that's kind of been watching from afar and just starting to, dip their toes in and get wet. So, like I was saying, I recently replayed, Pokemon Sword and Shield because I actually lost my Shield copy and I had to go buy a new one, and I got Sword on sale for like $30. And I also thought Zacian would be good for VG, and then it turns out by the time he actually made it into the game, he was nerfed. But either way, that's neither here nor there. One of the things that really just shocked me was like how much I actually enjoyed playing the game. Now keep in mind, this is me going back to playing Sword and Shield. I never beat it when it first came out. I think I played up to like the 6th gym or something like that, and I just hated it so much I just put it down. And when I went back, I found that, there's a lot of stuff that I didn't like, that I remembered not liking, but there was a lot of stuff that I was like, hey, actually, I wish we had this in Scarlet and Violet. Like, I wish that Game Freak continued this trend or improved on this or whatever. So I just wanted to talk about it. I guess let's start with some of the things that I actually liked about Sword and Shield. So I think the most obvious, right, is that the game just looks beautiful. I mean, if you look at any of the battles or the overworld, I mean, the colors are vibrant. It's the shading is crazy. The textures are really good. And for the first mainline Pokemon game on the Switch, it's actually really impressive. And one of the things that I immediately noticed was just how much more immersed I felt in the game. I had some issues with maybe some of the exploration parts, which we'll get into. So like that part of the immersion, I guess I wasn't super fond of, but at least the game just felt like a very clean, cohesive world. Everything kind of felt like it fit within each other. And, I was excited to enter a battle because it just looked really good. I mean, it ran at high FPS compared to what we have at Scarlet and Violet, at least. The battles, even though you didn't have the camera that moved, I don't care about that. Like, because of the camera not being forced to have to capture every model from every angle, you actually get some really cool battle animations. And then even the camera itself within the battle mechanic, right? You have that flying Rotom cam that just goes and gets all these crazy angles. I mean, you feel like you're part of this like stadium, right? And you're actually watching like a very high level, high stakes match. I mean, go back to the original video in the Gen 1, red and blue, and you watch that first video, like the whole thing is about a kid watching, right? whether it's in the anime or in the game. The whole thing is about a kid watching on TV a professional match in a giant stadium. And I feel like the Pokemon series finally got to that point and gave you that experience as the player. And in Scarlet and Violet, it's like, I'm going to go play in the backyard and like my grandma's watching. It's like, I don't know. It gives you a whole different vibe. And it didn't hit me until Worlds. When I was watching the Worlds game for Scarlet and Violet. And I'm like, damn, this is just like a match in the middle of Mesagoza. And yeah, they added some extra people in there for the Worlds match to make it look a little bit better. But like, it's still a small little field. I went back to watch like the 2022 World Championship stuff. And I was like, oh my god, this feels like a world championship match. Like, I forgot about this because I never beat the game. I never finished it. It was just, like, it was mind-blowing that, like, Pokemon could have that effect on me in this day and age. I was like, it's a shame that we lost that going into Scarlet and Violet. And then, you know, on top of that, you have the battle animations, right? Like, Drampa using Hyper Beam. I used it in one of my draft videos, right? Like, you feel the strength of that Hyper Beam just decimating a Pokemon. You don't get that anymore. It's like, okay, oh, okay, killed it, one shot, okay, nothing happened. Like, it's so stupid, you know? And I get that a lot of that. I get that it's because, you know, you have a lot of limitations when it comes to the camera, having to move around. I mean, you know, Blizzard had to deal with this in World of Warcraft where, like, you never used to fly. And then when they introduced flying, they had to, like, redo the whole entire old world to, like, make it work on a flying world. So I get that it's not as easy. It's just, like, a copy and paste thing. But it does annoy me a little bit when I'm like, we just had this last gen, and like now I feel like we've taken like 6 steps back, but it is what it is. And the last thing I just want to say too, just like from an aesthetics point of view, is, you know, Sword and Shield, while I don't necessarily know how the competitive side of this goes, so let's put this in the back burner, I should say. Gigantamax and Dynamax just looked cool. Like, objectively, it was a cool, casual mechanic. You get a giant Pokemon for 3 turns. Some of them get a new form. They get these new abilities. It's actually kind of cool. And then the abilities that they had were really cool. Like, way better than any type of Z move. And I felt like this was a nice, you know, new direction. It's kind of like having Megas, but not quite the same as a Mega. Because obviously it's not permanent. But I thought it was just cool. Let's just leave it there. Now, let's talk about some of the things I didn't like about Sword and Shield, because I also think it's important to look at what we came from and what we got after. So, like, obviously there are improvements from Sword and Shield to Scarlet and Violet, and some of these things do feel better. But, you know what, let's just dive into it. So, one of the things that I really just did not like about Sword and Shield, which I think is probably about 50% of why I stopped playing the game, was that it just felt too linear. Like, everything was hand-holdy, whether it was the cutscenes and the tutorials and, like, here, go to this place, go from A to B, go, you know, going from town A to B. Like, it's just a linear line going straight from the bottom to the top. And, you know, while if you think about it in a conceptual way, like, Pokemon in the past has always been kind of linear. You go from Gym 1 to Gym 2 to Gym 3, right? At least along the way, there were, like, other things to do. Like, oh, here's the Pokemon Museum. Here's the Safari. Maybe you do the Safari before you beat the gym leader or after. I mean, actually, I think in Red and Blue, you had to do it before. But the point, though, is that, like, you had other things to do that wasn't just, like, A to B. And I know that I know that Sword and Shield had some of that, like the mines and stuff. But, like, even then, it's a literal linear line in the dungeon, or a linear line. That's a tongue twister. Literal linear line going from town 1 to town 2. And it's just, I don't know. There was no reason to explore, right? And I do think that that's something that they were able to work on in the future. I mean, I started having this complaint back during, I think X and Y kind of had it, but not as bad as Sun and Moon. Sun and Moon, I remember being like, really like, hey, there's no reason, you literally can't deviate from the route, right? Like, so there's no reason for you to even try to explore because everything's just handed to you. Like, oh, and that patch of grass, that's like right there, here's an item. At least in the older linear gameplay of like Gens 1, 2, and 3, even though they were static maps that really weren't very difficult to navigate, if you wanted to quickly go from point A to point B, there are some things that you would miss, whether it be a TM, like a crucial TM, or an item or something like that, like for money, like a nugget, or just like, I don't know, maybe a bunch of max potions or something, right? Like, there was something to be gained by exploring. Maybe a rare Pokemon, right? So, I do feel like that was sorely missed in Sword and Shield. And I think the DLC kind of helped with that. Like, I did feel like the DLC had improved on what they had. Like, it did feel a little bit more like a Pokemon game, although I'm going to be honest with you, I didn't really like either of the 2 DLCs. I guess you could say that the one with Calyrex was like a little bit better, but I don't know. I hated the Urshifu DLC and the Calyrex one. I mean, I just hate Calyrex, so maybe I'm just biased. I don't know. But yeah, at least I felt like, I don't know, the game was just telling me what to do and I followed it. It's kind of, I don't know how many of you guys play World of Warcraft, but it's an issue that I had with WoW where the biggest problem for the longest time was that you had to keep going to an outside source to be able to beat a quest, right? Like to find this like random quest item in this world. It was really, really hard to do it yourself unless you went on like a search engine to search it. And so Blizzard eventually said, hey, we're going to put, I'm sorry, let me back up. So eventually somebody made an add-on, right? Like they made this add-on that like you could put into the game for free that would just mark on your map where to go. And so eventually it just became to the point where everybody just installed that add-on and turned the brains off. And then Blizzard was like, oh, all right, well, since you're doing it anyway, here you go. And like now in WoW, there's no reason to explore because you're being told, like, shut your brain off and go from point A to point B. I know it's not like a one-to-one comparison with Pokemon, but I do feel like it's like kind of in the same vein, I guess. But yeah, but that's enough about the exploration. I think the last thing I wanted to talk about was kind of like the other side of the coin in regards to like Gigantamax and Dynamax. So even though I did just praise it, saying I think it's a pretty cool mechanic, I didn't play with it in competitive at all. Like I literally didn't queue up a single competitive game in Sword and Shield. I could see it being a problem. I think it's a cool mechanic that wasn't super, I don't know. I don't want to say it wasn't designed for competitive because I think by now they realize that they have a pretty decent competitive scene, but it just, I don't know. I don't think it really enabled for a lot of fun things. I could be wrong, and please like correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, because that's just the general consensus I've been seeing online and also just my interpretation of the mechanic. It's kind of like having a mega but on a 3-turn time limit that can get stalled out or whatever. So yeah, I don't know. I could just see that being a downside. So, going from Sword and Shield now, let's look at Scarlet and Violet, right? So, not only is Scarlet and Violet the next generation, but this is also the third game, or fourth game, actually. It's the fourth main series Pokemon game. If you want to count, Let's Go Eevee and Pikachu. It went Sword and Shield was the first one. Let's Go Eevee and Pikachu. Okay. Arceus. I mean, Arceus is technically a main series game. Now we get Scarlet and Violet. So, this is the fourth and final game on the Nintendo Switch. I guess you can count Legends Arceus, but, Legends ZA, but for all intents purposes, it's the last game on the Switch. And so I think you kind of have a level of expectation here about what this game should look like and should play like. And I think in some aspects, Scarlet and Violet like really just knocked it out of the park. Like Scarlet and Violet multiplayer, I think revolutionized Pokemon. And in a way, it's funny for me to say that, and I don't even like fully agree with myself when I say that, but I think I need to say it because it's the most bare bones basic multiplayer that I think they could have done. But I do think that this brings the series to the next step. So this is something that they did, it was successful, and now they need to build upon it. If they just copy and paste Scarlet and Violet's multiplayer and put it in Gen 10, I would still use it, but like, I wouldn't be excited about it or actually be all that happy. So if you haven't used the multiplayer, literally all the Scarlet and Violet multiplayer is you group up with somebody and you run around and you explore in the world together. You can't double battle together. You take each other's shinies. So if there's one shiny that spawned, well, only one of you gets it. And it's really laggy. You also disconnect all the time. So I don't know if that's a Switch problem. I don't know if that's a Scarlet and Violet problem. I would say it's both. Probably more so Scarlet and Violet, though, because there's constant disconnect issues with that. But I think that it was great because it encouraged exploration. It encouraged people to play with their friends, which I think is very important for a game like Pokemon. And it just, like, I don't know, like, I have a lot of really fond memories with it. So I actually wasn't going to buy Scarlet and Violet. I didn't buy Arceus. After Sword and Shield, I said I'm done with Pokemon and I'm never buying another Pokemon game. So I skipped Arceus because I was so let down by Game Freak that I just couldn't bear to buy another game. And then I literally, the day before Scarlet and Violet came out, I was talking to my cousin Ryan and he was like, yeah, I want to try it. If you want to play the multiplayer, I'm like, now's the only time to play the multiplayer with somebody leveling up through the game for the first time. So I said, you know what? I'll bite the bullet, I'll just buy it, and we'll play it together. Just because I wanted that multiplayer experience in a genuine setting. Not somebody who was just going to one-shot and tell me where everything was. Like, I wanted to genuinely explore with somebody. And while it was a nice change on the formula, there were a lot of issues with Scarlet Violet, and also just issues in the back of my head that I've had with Game Freak for a while that just prevented me from finishing it. And then I only ended up picking it up again a few months later when I started dating my now boyfriend, because he wanted a game to play together, and he's like, "Oh, I heard you like Pokemon. Like, I'll buy Violet, and then we can play together." I'm like, "Okay," and then I ended up loving it. Sorry, Ryan, but nothing against Ryan. It was just I think coming back to it with a fresh mind of somebody who also hasn't played Pokemon since like Gen 4 or 5. You know, Ryan and I, we've been playing every single Pokemon game. I think at a certain point we've kind of just been burned by Game Freak so much we just were like not going into this with like I think the most open mind. I don't want to speak for Ryan, at least that was just my take on it. But, you know, going into it with Alex, and Alex always finishes games, so he held me accountable to finish it. We ended up playing through the whole thing, and I had a lot of fun with it. And I'm sure that's the same experience that like a father or a mother would have playing with their son. You know, like Moxie, Mr. Moxie Men's, he's on my channel all the time. We do a podcast together. He's talked about playing through Scarlet and Violet with his young daughter, and this is like one of her first experiences with a multiplayer type game, and she loved it. And they had a lot of really good bonding experiences together. So, you know, that's the kind of thing that like I think the multiplayer, like I said, very bare bones, and it has room for a ton of improvement. It really just opened the door to a lot more things. So like an improvement I'd like to see on it is I would love to be able to battle each of the gyms or the trainers as a double battle with my friend. Just let us each bring 3 Pokemon or whatever it is. I feel like that could really bring the game together. And the thing is, you might be saying, oh, Game Freak will never do that, or like, how would that work? Temtem does it. So if Temtem can do it, I'm pretty certain that Pokemon could do it. Temtem, I played with Mike, my friend Mike. We do get Blue Shell together. We played it and had fun. And like, even though it was kind of the same as like one person piloting 2, it was just nice playing the game with somebody else and then throwing ideas off each other. Like, oh, maybe we should protect this turn and then use this one or recharge or whatever. I don't know. It was interesting. I liked that. And like, just one more thing I want to say about the exploration too that I liked about Scarlet and Violet was that I felt like we were constantly finding new areas of the map that were either they felt like they weren't intended for us to explore, but like they obviously were, and we would just find new items or find new Pokemon. Because like, keep in mind, the 3 of us, we never looked into the game before this. We were like, nobody cared about it, so we didn't know what the new Pokemon looked like. We were just like, oh, what cool new Pokemon are we gonna find in this area? Or you know, what's the next what were those big Pokemon that you had to face? The champion ones, you know what I mean? It was exciting. The only thing that stunk was that whenever we were doing a trainer battle or a gym battle or rival battle, like we were in the same group but not interacting. I feel like that could take some improvement. Let's talk about the elephant in the room next, because I actually have some pretty strong feelings about it. Terra. So, okay, like I said, I only started playing competitive competitive doubles, I really should say, this format, and I have very limited interaction with Megas and Z-moves. I hated Z-moves. Z-moves were some of the worst. I think that was one of the worst design things they've ever done. And Megas were cool, but I felt like it limited team building. Terra, I feel like, is the best mechanic they will ever come out with. You know, typing is a core mechanic of Pokemon, whether it's in an offensive or defensive nature. You know, typing is just super important. And a lot of people identify with certain types, or maybe they only use ice Pokemon, but like ice Pokemon have a weakness to this or that, right? Terra lets you use your favorite Pokemon and not have to worry about its defensives. So I think because of that, it's made people happier that people could use other Pokemon. It's not the same, you know, bunch of Pokemon that are being used. The meta is actually extremely healthy right now, and I don't know if that's just because it's a brand new regulation or not. I think it's because it's a brand new regulation, but I also think it's because of Terra, like, literally enabling twice as many Pokemon as you could before. But it's amazing because it breathes new life into a game that I think has been so stale for so long. And I think that it just enables so many new cool interactions and new ability. Like, I know this is kind of off topic, but like something that I remembered back during Diamond and Pearl when I was trying to learn competitive was I thought it was so cool that my Rhyperior could learn like Ice Punch or whatever, which is an ice move and it's a rock Pokemon. So I'm like, oh, that's so cool that like if somebody throws out their Roserade, I can just ice punch them and they won't expect it. But what stunk was, I mean, it's not stab, so it doesn't actually hit that hard. Like I'm kind of almost better off hitting like Earthquake or something, right? So what I liked about Tara was that you could do those cool gimmicky things. Obviously, that's not great for balance, which is why I think that this is kind of like a two-faced thing. I think Terra is the best mechanic with an open team sheet. I think it's the worst mechanic with a closed team sheet, best of one especially. Which is funny because I think that Terra, if you only look in terms of the cart and what experience you get playing from home, is probably the worst mechanic. But I think if you look at it from a true competitive standpoint of like playing best of threes online with open team sheet or like going to a regional, this is just the hands down the best mechanic, and I'm going to be really upset to see it go. We'll talk about it a little bit later, how I think TPCI and Game Freak can keep that around without keeping it boring, I guess. But I just want to finish what I liked about Scarlet and Violet. Oh, and then the last thing too, this is really simple, but it was like so easy to make competitive Pokemon. That has been my biggest hurdle as a player. And I think it's the number one, not I think, I know it's the number one reason I didn't get into competitive really all that deep back in the day. My first interaction with anything competitive was back in like 2008, 2009. When I think it was like 2008 actually, when I was at a summer camp and I had Diamond and Pearl, and at camp we'd have to wait for our counselors to show up, so we would just break out our DSs and play. And I remember there was this kid that was like 2 or 3 years younger than me, and he was beating everybody. And I'm like, all right, yeah, this kid, I'm gonna like just let's battle up, and I'll put you in your place, right? And everybody's like, no, he's so good, he must be hacking. Like, I'm like who hacks in Pokemon? Like, what is this? And so I asked him to battle, and he looks at me. He's like, are you sure? And I'm like, yeah, like, why wouldn't I want to battle you? He's like, do you know about Smogon? And I was like, what is that? He's like, oh, I'm not sure if you're going to have fun then. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, let's just battle. He's like, all right. And he like swept me with this like Pikachu. That's all I remember was that there was a Pikachu and he swept me. And I was like, I was like, you're hacking. And he goes, no, I only hack to get the TMs that I need. So I asked him about it. He goes, just listen to me and go on YouTube and just search competitive Pokemon battles and you'll see what I mean. And that's when I was like first open to the mind of like, oh my God, there's an actual competitive like underground scene that does this. And so I forgot why I went on this tangent in the first place. Competitive. So the issue that I had was that I didn't know how to even get these mons, and I was confused between EVs and IVs, and I couldn't get the legendary Pokemon. And I'm like, I don't want to farm a legendary Pokemon for like these perfect IVs. I was like, I don't have this time. So I didn't even bother trying to do it again until Black and White towards the end of it. And so basically, just to wrap the story up, every generation I would come back, I would obviously play the game, beat it, and then try to get into competitive. And I just couldn't because it was just so uninviting. I didn't want to have to RNG abuse. I didn't want to have to hack. And I felt like if I didn't do those two things, I just couldn't get a competitive mon that was worth my time. And then on top of that, let's be real, finding battles, I think there was like a Pokemon, it wasn't Showdown, it was whatever came out before Showdown. Like I know there was a battle simulator online, but let's be real, it was kind of sketchy unless you knew what you were doing. You could either do that or you could find people on like the Cerebi forums. Like it was really hard to get battles back then. There was no ladder until I think X and Y. So yeah, it was very difficult to get to the competitive scene. And I felt like Sun and Moon was probably like that first time where I felt like my time was being somewhat rewarded and that it was possible for me to get into. But again, I stopped. And so with Sword and Shield, that would have been the best time for me to get into it because I had the rental codes. However, I still felt like now I'm being limited by this Pokemon. Like I still have to grind a decent amount. Now with Scarlet and Violet, I mean, I can get a competitive Pokemon in like 5 minutes. Like it's so easy. It's almost, I don't want to say too easy because I appreciate it being very approachable. It's easier for me to get people to come play, or I can make mons for other people to get them to play with me or practice against me. Like I drag my boyfriend into it sometimes. But I think that's something that I think it's at a very good place right now, or at least since the DLC came out, because I think Terra Shards were actually a little too difficult on launch, but it's great. That's something that they need to keep going forward. So now that I'm 25 minutes into this, let's talk about why I didn't like Scarlet and Violet. And obviously, this is opening a can of worms, and I could sit here and tell you 10,000 things you already know. But I think in the context of this video, there's just like 3 or 4 things I want to point out. So the most obvious one being this game just looked awful. Like, it just, everything about it looks terrible. Polygon count, graphics. I mean, it felt like we went back to the DS era with how awful this game looks. I mean, it's so sad going from what was probably the best 2 looking games. I mean, Sword and Shield, say what you want about that game, but it looks beautiful. Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, the same thing. That's probably the best looking Pokemon franchise. Like, if I were to think Pokemon going 3D, what the peak ideal vibe of it would be, it's actually Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee. Just take that stupid catching mechanic out, and that is probably one of the greatest Pokemon games. Like, straight up. It's amazing. And because of that emptiness that it in the battle and in the world, it just didn't feel right. Like, I felt like on one hand I'm exploring so much as this whole continent, and I could explore. There's no loading screens. I could just run from area 1 to B. I can fly. Like, I'm riding this Pokemon around, and I'm just doing whatever I wanted to do. But at the same time, it felt like I was walking through like somebody's like college like game project. Like, I know that's like a little mean because I actually feel like some college devs could probably do a better job than this. But you know what I'm saying? Like, it's like a prototype, I guess, where it's like, okay, cool, here's the rough draft of what the world and the map looks like, and then we're gonna drop like 5 Pokemon in. Now, I know some of this they're addressing with the Switch 2 upgrade. That's a conversation for a different video. But I don't know. That's just, that what to me is like the biggest issue with Scarlet and Violet. The other issue is that, unfortunately, that also bled into the battles. And I feel like that's the worst part about the whole thing, other than the fact that, like, you have to play through this game, spend X amount of time leveling and battling in this, like, really boring world just to get to the end game where competitive is, and the battles are somehow even worse. You know, there's, like, no flavor at all in any of these animations, any of these models. I mean, everything's doing the same thing. It gets hit, that's the same thing, and then it faints. Whatever it is. I mean, the actual attack animations are just honestly horrible. It's like, you go look at things like Battle Revolution. I know this is the meme, but like Battle Revolution stuff legitimately looks better than this. You know? So I'm like, this is something that Champions, I know Champions is gonna do a better job with this, because I think Champions is basically based on that kind of gameplay. But it's just so sad that like a main series game just dropped that. So I don't know. I know it's like trying to appeal to the younger generation, but like, I would drop the movable camera in a heartbeat to be able to get back even just a fraction of what we had with Sword and Shield. And I never thought I'd hear myself say that. Next thing is, oh yeah, with the exploration. So like, yeah, like I said, you can go through and explore whatever you want at any pace you want. Cool. But it's just still too easy. So I know that this is kind of opening a can of worms. You know, the experience share thing, I want to be able to opt that off. I get that they can't balance the game as well, but like, I don't know. I don't see what the problem is. You balance the game for EXP share and then let somebody shut it off. They clearly want the challenge, so just let them have the challenge. Who cares if it's balanced or not? Right? Like, I feel like somebody who willingly shuts off, like, leave EXP share on by, you know, automatic, and then let anybody remove it who wants to remove it. I don't think that's in Scarlet and Violet. If I'm wrong, let me know, but I easily would have shut that off if I knew that existed. You know, as much as I would love to see a hard mode in Pokemon, I don't want them putting any sort of development time towards that. I'm going to be real with you, because even though it would be fun for a lot of people, I don't know what we're going to lose in the process, and I don't think we can afford to lose anything else for a hard mode. You know, like I said, back in World of Warcraft, I constantly make WoW references because I played that game for 14 years of my life, and I played it at a high level, so I've kind of seen it all. But we lost an entire raid tier because they wanted to design like a better player housing situation, and the player housing situation was absolutely horrible. So it's like, there's a limited amount of dev time and money, and even though this is the biggest brand in the world, I don't think the video games are really getting a ton of support. So let's pick and choose our battles here. All right, so now that we've looked at the past 2 generations of Pokemon, we can get to the meat of the video, which is, what do I want to see in Gen 10 and in Champions, and what do I think we're going to see in Gen 10 and Champions? So, we only know a little bit of information about Champions, which is the fact that it is going to interact with Home, that like Go interacts with Home, that Gen 10 is going to interact with Home. Everything's going to be kind of in the same ecosystem. And the fact that there are multiple generational mechanics in there. So there's Terra, there's Megas, Gigantamax. We're going to be able to kind of do everything. I think what we don't know is this going to be a pocket type game, or is this going to be the future of VGC? So I hope and want and think it's going to be the future of VGC, and I think this is why. I think they're really trying to find a way to bring their entire ecosystem together, because like Home right now is just being used as, hey, I just want to back up a Pokemon that I have that's really rare, which is fine in and of itself. But I think that there's something missing where it's like nothing really connects with each other. I know that like, yeah, in Go I can catch a legendary and put it in Gen 10, cool, but like I feel like having something that people could do where it's not directly interacting with the other games. I don't think I'm explaining this correctly, but like I'm just thinking of it in terms of like a graph, right? Like I don't know, Go players aren't really gonna put their Pokemon into Gen 9. Like right, like why are you gonna play it on a main series game? You're probably like, I don't know. Maybe I'm kind of diving into a rabbit hole here. I don't know. Maybe I'll just back up because my brain's like not kind of processing it the way I want to say it. But I just feel like Champions is probably just going to read whatever you put in Home, and it may let you customize it in Home, or not in Home, but I guess in Champions. But I still feel like you're going to need to get, I guess let me sum it up this way. You're still going to need to buy Gen 10 as a competitive VGC player. You're still going to need to beat it, and you're still going to need to train and catch all your Pokemon in there. I think at a certain point, you're going to upload it to Home, and then that is going to directly feed into Champions. Now, I want to be able to customize that Pokemon in Champions. Something's telling me I'm not. Although, here's the issue is, okay, let's say that you have to do all of your EVs, IVs, attacks, everything in Gen 10. That completely discounts the entire mobile player base. So if you're in Go, you can't edit any of those things in Go. And the moves that are in Go do not directly translate to the moves in Gen 9. So I think the issue is going to be that they have to let you edit things in Champions, which gets tricky. Because I also feel like, okay, so what currency are you going to use? And that's where I start to kind of get lost and lose a little bit of faith in this, because currently you just have to buy Gen 10, maybe buy the DLC, or Gen 9, I should say. You buy the DLC, you play through it, and then the only thing that you're using to get this currency is time. In Champions, unfortunately, because it's a mobile game that's probably going to be free, what are you paying with to get those things? It could just be time, but unfortunately, I think it opens up that avenue of, hey, you can grind these with time, or you can pay for it. And I'm in this weird boat where, like, I don't mind throwing some money on a mobile game, some, like, extra cash that I have, as long as it's fair, and, if I choose not to spend any money, I'm not being put at an inherent disadvantage. So, like, one thing I'm fine with spending money on are cosmetics. Maybe some fresh mochi, just because that just simplifies the whole process. But don't ask me to spend money on, like, HP ups or carbs or any of that stuff. Don't ask me to spend money on TMs. That's the kind of stuff that I think once you do that, you break the entire ecosystem. I don't think TPCI and Game Freak are that desperate to do that. And I think they realize that, like, part of why Showdown is very accessible and why it's used as a tool that it's used for is because it's, you know, obviously it's free. You can change it as much as you want. You can experiment. It encourages you to try new things. And, I think, unfortunately, I think there's just that fine line. Although I have to say, Nintendo, TPCI, you know, they've overall been pretty respectful of money. I mean, you could complain about what you want with the DLCs. This is still one of the cheapest video games to play. Unless you play a total free-to-play game, in which case, yeah, sure, you can play the base of it for free, but they're nickel and diming you for every cosmetic. I mean, listen, I think there's a nice balance with Pokemon, but either way, I think that we just have to be careful and make sure that we speak up about things that we just think are not fair. And hopefully that does not ruin the competitive ecosystem. I don't think it will, but yeah, basically, I guess just sum that point up, I do think that you're going to have to buy Gen 10 anyway and still play through it as a VGC player. Because I see a lot of people going like, hey, oh, Champions, like, it's its own separate game. I don't have to buy the main series anymore. I'm like, well, if they said it interacts with home, chances are it's because it's interacting with home for you to grab your own Pokemon. Like, why would you need to interact with home if you could just make everything on Showdown, right? So while you can make the argument that it doesn't need to interact with home and you can just make your own Pokemon and it is what it is, or you could do that and then also bring in your own Pokemon if you want. I mean, sure, but I'm just trying to think from a business standpoint, why deal with that kind of connectivity if it wasn't the main reason, you know? So anyway, next point. Oh, it's the last point I wanted to bring up, which is the rotating the season with unique formats. So as I said, I think Terra is the hands down best competitive mechanic they've ever come out with, even though it's boring. It's balanced, it's fun, it makes the metagame better. What I would love nothing more than to see is like an old format with Terra, right? Because Terra enables new Pokemon. So I'd love to be able to go back to a format that like maybe didn't have Terra and see how Pokemon would work in like Gen 5 or Gen 6. The only problem is I don't think you can have multiple gimmicks at the same time. So like I don't think you can have a format where there's Mega and Terra and you get to pick one or two. Because I think it's obvious that one of them is just better than the other one. Like why would you ever pick a Z move, right? In a format that has Megas? Or why would you ever pick a Z move in a format that has Terra? They're just better designed mechanics that are stronger. So I think you're going to start seeing, assuming that everything goes to Champions as the future of competitive battling, I think you're going to start seeing more frequently rotated Pokemon pools, and you're going to see more frequently rotated gimmicks, and they're going to interchange with each other. So maybe there'll be a season of just Gigantamax. Maybe they'll add new Gigantamax, right? Right? Because you can. What's stopping you from adding new Gigantamax or new Megas? You can constantly be updating these things. And that's what gets me really excited about this, because I just feel like the future of Pokemon is looking so bright with all of these possibilities. And I get really excited when I think about it. The only problem is like I have to tone it down because at the end of the day it's Game Freak and it's TPCI. And while I do think they genuinely want to make good products, I just think that unfortunately because of the way that businesses are run, something has to get cut at the end of the day. So whether it be resources or time, whatever it is, you don't always get the best product at the end of the day, unfortunately. So I don't know. I would love to see the Scarlet and Violet universe with no Terra. I want to see what Pokemon are viable then. Maybe throw in some Megas that can interact and have Raging Bolt on their team, right? Like, I don't know enough about the Megas to be like, oh yeah, this would be a sick combo, but you can't tell me there's not some cool stuff that you could do with like a Mega Gengar in a Scarlet and Violet world, right? I mean, there's new Pokemon out. So I think that that's something that they could definitely really look into and customize it. And it keeps things fresh. You know, for me, I like it when a format lasts like 2 or 3 months, because I feel like a format comes out and then everybody's, you know, scrambling to find the new best thing, and the top 8s are always crazy. And then like a month in, it settles, right? So you go from maybe like 8 different restricteds down to like 3 or 4, and things settle. And then somebody breaks that. And then a month later, now we're back to everything being blown open again. And that's just that's the sign of a good meta, right? Is that people were able to break it and find it again. That also only lasts for so long until people start giving up and people start dropping, or they just play what's best because they're frustrated. So I don't know. I feel like 2 to 4 months is probably no shorter than 2 months and no longer than 4 months would be like a good appropriate time for like a regulation. And then change the mechanics every once in a while. So maybe 1 year is just only Megas, or maybe 6 months is only Megas. And just kind of play with it from there. But now I kind of feel like I'm like ranting, and this has already been way longer than I wanted. But yeah, that's just like kind of what I want to see in Gen 10 and Champions. Like I'm really excited about it. Let's be honest. Like when Champions comes out, I can see myself becoming a content machine between IRL events, online events. I definitely want to be doing like Tommy tours and stuff like that, and just like general content. I guess the last thing I actually want to mention is they need to bring back replays or like a versus recorder. Like it can't be that hard, you know? Even if I can't record the actual game, like it's not a storage problem. It's just it spits out a combat log. Just let that combat log replay. Let me save like 100 replays and be done with it, because the amount of growth this game can see if you let people see the local scene, like how it used to be in old gens 4 and 5. I don't know if they had it for 6. I think they had it for 6 as well. But it's like, I would love nothing more than to go to a local, play against 3 people. Tom Hayden's in my area, Brendan Zhang, Jacob Scraw, right? I play against them. I would love to like watch those matches back, realize what I did wrong, and like make a video out of that. But right now, as you guys see with my PAX video, it's like, oh, I gotta put my phone on my little stand. You know, I gotta like record. Oh, there's a glare on it. It's just, it's not, I don't know. For Pokemon, I feel like that's just not acceptable anymore. How is there no versus recorder? So many other games let you record. I mean, League of Legends lets you record your games. Valorant does. You know, let you save the replay. It's like, I don't know. I just feel like it's such a missed opportunity for such a very small investment from Game Freak's end. So that's actually my biggest wish list for Gen 10 and or at least Champions. Even if it's not in Gen 10, at least in Champions, I feel like it'll really revitalize the online community. And also, I guess now that I'm saying that, another thing too would be letting people watch other matches, even if it's on a delay. So like, for example, on Showdown, I can go in and I can watch anybody else's match. I can click on the bar and see who's playing, or I can just join a friend's match if they're playing in a tournament match. For our draft league, everybody posts the link and there'll be like 10 people watching your draft match live, which I think is really cool. So that could be really great as somebody like me who helps run tournaments, and I help do the production for these things, for the live streams. Dude, how cool would it be for a Tommy tour that there's just a straight up live stream from start to finish? Like, that would be so cool. I would love to help do something like that, but I can't, because now you have to require almost everybody to have a capture card. And if somebody doesn't have a capture card, well, all right, we'll see you in an hour and a half when the round's done. You know, and you're probably going to have a lot of people that don't have a capture card, want to stream or any of that stuff. So I don't know. There's a lot of potential outside of this. I think people need to like realize that it's not just like, oh, cool, I can play it on my phone or I can play it on the Switch. I think a lot of what I said isn't necessarily revolutionary, but I want people to see it outside the box and see like where we came from, where I think we're headed, and what could be good. So anyway, I want to hear your thoughts though, so please leave them in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this video, throw it a like. It really helps support the channel. I want to keep doing these types of videos, so as long as you guys are enjoying them, I'll keep doing them. Give me a topic suggestion and let me know what you think, and I will see you in the next video.